Hey everybody, welcome to my studio. My name is Mackenzie and I'm an artist and a pattern designer. Today we're going to talk a little bit about my studio and the top things that I love in my studio. So to show you a little bit about my work, I paint portraits. This is a print of a recent portrait I did of Christ painting. My husband is my Christ model, which is kind of fun. I paint things like this little bee. I paint florals like this, kind of, I don't know what you call them, contemporary floral paintings. And I also paint landscapes. And then, like I said, I design patterns for things like wallpaper. So this is wallpaper I have with Loomwell, and then this is just an example of a little pattern I've made for a Christmas collection. So I license my art, which means I rent my artwork to companies. So I have patterns licensed with wallpaper companies and fabric companies, and then I have wall art licensed to home decor companies. So that's another thing I've talked about. I'll link that video at the end of this if you're interested in learning more about art licensing. It's a fun and exciting little semi-passive side income for artists. So anyway, welcome. I'm going to give you a little tour around my studio. Just a little bit about me. I'm a stay-at-home mom and I homeschool my second oldest. My oldest is in school. She's in 9th grade and my second is 9. He's in 4th grade, and then I have a toddler. So I'm home all day with my younger ones. Life is just kind of crazy, but I also am starting an art business and just a kind of a side hustle that I'm planning to grow into more as the years go on. So there isn't a lot of time to fit in creation, but there is time when it's a priority, and 2 years ago I decided to make it a priority. So last year I turned this little spare room into an art studio, and that's what I'm going to show you today. So let's go take a look at all of my favorite things. So the first thing you're going to see when you walk in is this little main area here. So this easel was made by my grandpa, who passed away shortly after he built this. So he was an artist, and the cool thing is I actually inherited most of his art supplies, and so this is the biggest thing of his that I own and inherited. And it's a really awesome sturdy easel that has a base that goes like way back there behind the curtain, and it holds canvas really well. So I do need to get a new replacement for this. This actually goes to a small easel. Doesn't hold the canvas very well because the little washer is tiny on the back. But anyway, so this is my easel. This is where I do the bulk of my actual paintings. And then up here I have 2 hairpin lamps. So one of the issues that I had in this art studio, one of the things that caused a lot of apprehension when I decided to move into this art studio was the fact that the ceiling was so low. And honestly, this room is dingy, but we'll talk about that in another video. And I was worried about having good lighting for my painting because there's no actual windows. There are 0 windows in this room, except for this, which goes out into the stairway landing area where my kids build their Legos. So there is a little bit of light, but there isn't any actual light that everyone dreams about having in a big old bright art studio. So I had to improvise. I watched some awesome YouTube videos that taught me about what kind of lighting to have, and so they suggested this hairpin lamp setup. And so I've just attached it to the top of the easel here, and that's how I light my artwork when I'm painting. So I've got 2 of them. Sometimes I just use 1 because I found that that's enough light, and but I do have the other one as an option for more lighting. Something that I love so much is having a paper towel holder attached to my easel. It's a game changer because we do so much cleanup with our paintbrushes, and having those shop towels right there, easily accessible, is just so nice. So, okay, off to the left, I have just a shelf. One thing, by the way, is shelves are absolutely critical in an art studio, and I found that I don't think I can ever have too many. So this shelf here, right here, I have an iPad stand because I do some digital drawing for patterns there. And then under here I have my scanner. So this scanner is an Epson V600. I don't know if you can see that, but this thing is so nice because it scans in high resolution, which is really important for making art prints, making high quality art prints, and then also if you're planning to art license you know, license your artwork and sell the high resolution files to companies or rent them out. So, and then just some artwork sitting there, and then a bunch of random stuff. I actually got like art and papers from all the way back from high school in there, like old sketchbooks and stuff that was from ages ago. And then over here, I spend a great deal of time at this desk. And if you're starting an art business or you've had an art business, at this day and age, it's kind of impossible to have an art business without having to deal with a lot of tech. So I've embraced it. I used to hate it back in high school, took graphic art and did as little as I could get away with working on the computer. More lighting here. I have the canvas lamp right there, and this thing is awesome because it's a cell phone, it's a phone mount, so I can record process videos really well with that. Plants are a must in an art studio, and if you're a plant lover like me, you will figure out a way to have plants in your studio even if there's no natural light. And this thing has survived for months in low to almost no light, thankfully. But yeah, so this desk is really cool. I got it off of Amazon, and it actually goes up and down. I know there are electric ones, but I wanted a manual one. I don't know why. But I can turn that crank, and this desk will go up and down. I actually don't change that up very much because it's easier to move my chair up and down. So this desk, I do a lot of my pattern painting here and sketching, and then here I have my laptop, which I also spend a lot of time on. Another little plant there from my husband. He loves to give me plants as a gift. And then a second computer screen. Also so useful when you're working on the computer and working with mock-ups and working on Photoshop and Adobe Illustrator and then editing videos. Another really nice thing to have, and this thing I love in my studio, is my spinning art chair that goes up and down, and it's aesthetically pleasing, which I really like. Okay, moving over here, we have another shelf. So I've got paintbrush storage, pens, things like that. This I made in high school in a ceramics class. And I think I forgot to glaze. I forgot to fire it during one of the steps. And so I think I made the mug and then I glazed it before firing it in between. And so when I put it in after glazing it, it did all this kinds of crazy stuff, but it's got a lot of character. So these two paintings have been licensed with a company. I can't say yet because it's not released, but that one's an exciting one. I'm hoping it will be online soon. Down here I have the bulk of my paints that I use. So I've got all different kinds of mediums that I work with. I've got some real simple basic watercolors, but I really like the palette there. This here is my gouache paint. So I use gouache a lot, or gouache a lot for pattern making, pattern design, because I love hand painted patterns. Over here I have acrylic paints. I like to paint my florals, things like that with acrylics. And then in here I have my oil paints. So tools for opening the sticky bottle lids and a knife in case I need one for whatever reason. So yeah, these are my oil paints that I use, and I mainly use oils for my portraits and landscape paintings. Some landscapes I like to paint with acrylics, but if I'm really into the fine art mode, I like using oils. Down here we have more paints. Nova Colors I found is really great if you're looking for paint that is really opaque, and that's something I discovered them this last summer, and I really like their products. And then over here I have pre-mixed gouache paint. So when I design patterns, I really like to work from a specific color palette, especially when I'm making hand-painted patterns, because then I don't have to do a lot of color change in Photoshop, and that can be tricky. So I like to pre-mix the colors I'm working with at the time for the current collection, and that makes it really efficient, especially as you go on designing patterns or making art. Whatever it is you're doing, you tend to start to discover that you have like your own color palette that you like to work with, and so it's nice that you're not having to remix everything all the time. This is, I don't think it was a charcoal drawing done by my grandpa, the same one whose art supplies I inherited, and he was an amazing portrait artist. Okay, next level down, you may also find that you love, as an artist, books. So I have a lot of books here, and I think I'm gonna need like a full bookshelf just dedicated for books in my studio eventually. But down here I have a lot of inspiring books to use for patterns and fine art, and then I also have a lot of my sketchbooks down here. And then the color cube down there. I don't know if you've ever heard of those. Look them up. I'm not going to explain it, but they're really fun to work with if you design patterns and like to work with color palette. That's my logo there. Oh, and also string lights. Little cafe lights, whatever you want to call them. Also a must-have for me. Plants, string lights, pretty things in the studio. It helps me want to be in my studio. My black drop cloth has come undone and I need my tall husband to put that back up for me. So on this other side of the room is not as pretty, but it is useful. I have several more easels. This is a nice small tabletop easel that I like to use at my desk if I don't want to use my big one. And this is another easel that I inherited from my grandpa, and I've used this a lot. In fact, I've used this probably since high school many years ago. Self-portrait I painted about 10 or 12 years ago. In this cabinet I have just a bunch of random art supplies, like more paint palettes back here. It's a solution to wash out my oil paints. Down here I have varnish and workable fixative. It's the artist gesso, more paintbrushes, and more gouache. Art prints down there. Old watercolor palettes from back in college. More, let's see, charcoal and pencil supplies. Yeah, so just a bunch of random stuff that I don't actually get at often, except for probably the oil paint supplies. And then up here I have my glass palette for oil paints, which are it's really nice to work with. And you can buy them or you can make them. We actually made this. It's just 2 panels of glass with white spray painted in between, and then just easily put some, not super technical, but what do you call it? Duct tape around the sides to cover the sharp edges. A recent oil landscape I painted from a morning sunrise. And then over here in this corner, I have just a bunch of random stuff in drawers. I've got a light box, packaging supplies, a bunch more wallpaper samples, a bunch of things that I've painted, like on loose paper sheets for patterns and things like that. And then these are actually greeting cards. So I designed a bunch of greeting cards and tried to sell them at some markets this last fall, winter. They didn't sell very well. The market had hardly anyone attend, unfortunately. But I did sell some on my Etsy shop, and now I have a huge stock of Christmas greeting cards that I can either sell next Christmas or give away. They might actually be available on my Etsy shop, which I'll link if you're interested in buying some. Or if you happen to be a company who wants to license these images for greeting cards. Let's see, down here I have a whole bunch of MDF board shop towels. And then in here, not worth talking about. Nothing exciting. So that was my art studio in a nutshell. Thank you so much for joining me in my studio. I hope you found it kind of interesting. And if you have any questions about art supplies or anything like that, just ask me in the comments and I will most likely answer you. Also, if you like seeing the art supplies and want to know more about them or maybe where you can find them, I do have a free art supplies download that I'll link in the caption. And it basically lists out all the art supplies that I love and use in my art business. And I have downloaded other artists' art supply lists when I was getting started, and I found it super helpful and super valuable for me because I was able to pick and choose the things that were interesting to me and that were already vetted by other artists. So go ahead and download the art supplies list and then come back for my next video. Bye.